Hi there, this is our daily Astro Tarot. We have many cards today. Our opening card is the King of Pentacles. The challenge that we are facing today is the Three of Swords. The way we're going to be working through the challenge is the Charioteer. And then the ultimate outcome came through as two cards. Initially, one started coming out and then two came out together, which is the Three of Wands combined with the Two of Swords. And then I pulled a card of clarity for us and got the Eight of Pentacles. So let's talk about the energies that we have going on today, shall we? The opening card of the King of Pentacles is related to a lesson around our values and our material situation and how stable we feel in that situation. Now, consider that the King of Pentacles is a fixed earth sign, and it's associated with the sign of Taurus. And we've had Uranus, the planet of Uranus, in Taurus for several years now, creating a lot of change to where we've probably felt a lot of stability in our lives. Now, we're working with this and looking at this, and of course, you know, our challenge is coming through as the Three of Swords. Now, the Three of Swords is a card around worry and self-sabotage and kind of reviewing things with our mind and letting it overcome our emotional world, right? That is why the Three of Swords are kind of piercing this heart, and this storm is going on in the background. But it's important to consider that the swords is a symbol or suit of the mind and our mental arena. So what this is also pointing to is how we're letting our mind kind of overrule our system, right? Because we ultimately have multiple tools that we're working with as beings. We have the swords, which are our mind. We have the cups, which are our emotional nature, our wands, which are our sense of will, and the pentacles, which is the overall body. And so when we consider how we can have all of these elements of our own system working together, or where maybe, you know, in contrast, one of the elements is kind of running away with us, right, by way of the mind can kind of whip up the emotions and make us feel hard on ourselves or overly critical, which isn't really surprising to me, considering that the sun is passing through the sign of Virgo right now. Venus just moved into Virgo today as well. And we are getting this energy of kind of review around our year so far, and also kind of some criticalness around, you know, where we spent or shared or, you know, exhausted our time this year that maybe didn't bring us the fruits of our labor, right? So this Three of Swords is coming in as like a worry card, which is our challenge because it's something that we have to work with by way of, you know, how much energy we want to give to this aspect of our own being that takes us into this critical space, right? Because we have to also look at other aspects of this energy that can give us some kind of assistance, especially like if we consider Virgo energy is also considered a practical energy. There are people and energy that pays attention to details to figure out how to differentiate, you know, what's useful and what's not, and how to assimilate information to determine what worked and what didn't, so they can refine their efforts for the next year or for the next cycle. It's not meant to be a harsh review. It's meant to be done in a place of learning and learning through experience, right? So for instance, if you were growing peppers and you had them in a place where they got a lot of water and you didn't get a lot of fruit, and whereas maybe you had another pepper plant that was growing in a pot that was black and dried out more occasionally because it was, you know, left on its own, and that one did better. You'll see that some vegetables like different environments than other vegetables. And so by applying this critique, you can learn from that experience and figure out where to put your energy and efforts. And I think that's what our energies of the cards are coming in for today to remind us about, right? Because the way that we're going to get through this card of the Three of Swords came in as the Charioteer. And the Charioteer is an interesting energy because it is an energy that's associated with the moon and, the sign of Cancer, which is active water, right? Cardinal water. And the moon right now is in conjunction with Pluto. And Pluto's in Capricorn, and we've had a lot of things going on and shifts in our lives, particularly in the last 2.5 years, right? Because coincidentally, when we went into that big shift, we also had this big conjunction of planets in the sign of Capricorn, all centered around the planet of Pluto, and that was in January of 2020. And when Mars went into conjunction with that same energy a couple of months later, it ended up kind of engaging this big shift in the whole social order and the whole social structure. And that was in the sign of Capricorn. And right now the moon is in Capricorn along with the planet of Pluto, right? So there's like this place of review that's going on right now. And, there was recently an alignment with Venus and the moon. And there will be actually in a couple of days, because Venus just entered Virgo right now, which is another earth sign, right? And so as it gets closer towards the end of Virgo, it will come into a trine relationship with Pluto and bring this kind of sense of compassion towards the change and transformation that we've been undergoing, particularly not just in our own personal lives, but also societally. And so there's a lot of shifts happening, right? And it's interesting because when we consider like where we are getting stuck in our own ideas and self-critique around self-sabotage, and maybe like where we wanted to develop certain aspects ourselves and in ourselves, and where we got away from that, or where we got distracted from things. The Charioteer is reminding us that it's us who hold the reins, right? And it's time to perhaps start pulling in the reins, because initially this card came in upside down, which tells me that the energy is kind of in, it's not flowing. We're not, maybe we kind of let the two creatures in the front of this card kind of run away with the carriage. We just kind of let ourselves fall into certain behaviors or certain routines that actually took us off the path that we actually feel determined and called to move towards. So we have to ask ourselves, where do we want to go, and where do we feel called to move towards? Because it's time to start guiding our carriage, because ultimately if we do that, we're determined to be victorious rather than to be a victim of circumstance, so to speak. And that's important work, to be able to have boundaries and to move away from perhaps what's comfortable toward that which you feel called to move toward. It takes energy and effort and a willfulness to be able to guide your own ship. Now, the ultimate outcome that came through for today came in as several cards. Initially it came in as the Three of Wands, and then the Two of Swords kind of followed suit. And the Three of Wands is like the reluctant adventurer, but it's this hopeful card because it's encouraging you to move forward. And it is encouraging you to move forward, because it's like help is on the way. There's, you know, something there to support you once you start moving along your path, even if you feel this trepidation from, you know, crossing this huge body of water. And the card that came in to follow it up was the Two of Swords, which this like hesitancy and kind of being stuck in this place of indecision. And, you know, because the person in this card has these two swords across their chest and is blindfolded. And so in a lot of ways, it's like being stuck in the mind and not realizing that like listening to your emotions is actually the key and the way out. But if we get stuck in indecision when we're trying to move forward, that kind of creates this tug of war, right, between our mind and between our will, which is why I pulled an additional card for us today, which is the Eight of Pentacles. Now, the Eight of Pentacles is the apprentice craftsman, right? That's what this card is called. And we see that this person is working on, you know, shaping this pentacle in front of them, and they have a couple of pentacles on their table and several pentacles that they have hung on the wall behind them. And this is someone who's really willing to put forth the energy and effort to build towards something, right? They're willing to put the time and energy towards something. And I think this is encouraging. And the reason why I think this is encouraging is because we're, you know, stepping into an interesting time right now where Mars, which is the energy that typically like engages us and in you know, encourages us to move into a certain area and to put some kind of energy and effort towards something, because it's that warrior planet, you know, it's the planet that goes into something to try to create you know, order out of chaos, hopefully, right? Or it's the aggressor, you know, depending on how we work with that fiery energy within Mars. But it's getting ready to go retrograde, and it's doing this in Gemini. So it's, you know, spending a lot of time in this zodiac sign that's typically associated with communications and sharing things vocally or by some kind of outlet. It's also short distance travel. It's matters around siblings. It's, you know, also associated with practical learning skills. And it's going to be in this sign for 7 months, which is a much longer amount of time than it typically is in a sign. It's usually in any sign around 2 months. So it's going to be sitting in this time, but it's also going to be retrograde. So if we consider like where we feel called to move towards something, and yet we feel some kind of constraint, we have to consider that the planet of Mars is getting ready to go retrograde. And so it's as if this energy isn't in its like full force, right? And so it's a good time to work on things rather than really like put things out into the world, because there are so many retrograde planets right now. So it is a good time to work on something and refine something that perhaps you've wanted to work on in the past, which you haven't quite yet been able to bring to full fruition, right? And it's quite possibly more useful and practical to put our energy towards working on those things and taking care of those lists and like making sure we put our time and energy towards those practical efforts, rather than just, you know, spending our time up in the mind being overly critical of ourselves and kind of stirring up our woes, so to speak. So that is our reading for today. I hope you all are well, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.